title today is Honoring Our Intuition. And we all know what intuition is, right? Or do we? When I started thinking about this, it seemed to me it's very difficult to define exactly what intuition is. It comes in so many subtle and ephemeral ways. Does anyone here believe that they are intuitive? Okay, a few people do. Does anyone think they're more of a rational type? Who's more of a rational type? Okay, okay. And who would like to become more intuitive? I think pretty much all of us would like to become more intuitive. I believe, in fact, that we all are intuitive. I think that intuition is a birthright of all the creatures on this planet. In fact, it's part of the survival mechanism for all creatures. And I think that goes for plants as well. I think everything on this planet partakes of that intuitive nature, a way of just knowing how to be and do in this world. However, we humans have managed to lose our intuitive sense to one degree or another, and we've come to rely more and more on the rational mind. And Albert Einstein said, "The intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift." So there's a message right there. A bit ago I said we had lost our intuitive sense to one degree or another, but Einstein puts it more clearly: we have forgotten it. It's rather like forgetting where you put something in your house and stumbling upon it sometime later when you're no longer looking for it. Or if you wear glasses, looking for them all over the place and finding out they were on your nose all the time. So it's that simple. We all have intuition, and we've all forgotten it. It's kind of like, where is it? And it's so subtle. It's not like we can go looking for it, because I don't know if you've ever found that you've put something in such a clever place. I've done this. It's something kind of that I value, and I'm going to put it somewhere so clever that I might never find it again until I move out. So it's not a question of going looking for our intuition, but rather honoring it in a way that allows it to come to us. And somewhere along the way in our individual upbringing and the evolution of modern society, our sixth sense, as it's sometimes called, has come to be regarded with a degree of suspicion, or it's outright put down. I don't know if anybody's ever told you that's just your imagination, or don't be so silly. I think we may have all heard that as a child, in particular, because children are intuition. They haven't lost their intuition yet. And we don't always honor their imagination and their sixth sense. And we tell them, and I think probably many of us here have been told, oh, that's just silly, or that's your imagination. But bit by bit, the so-called paranormal, and I call it so-called because to me, the paranormal is not outside of the normal. The paranormal is perfectly normal. We're bathed in it. It's all over the place. We just don't give it credence. And I think there is more and more interest in it, but it hasn't quite filtered through to the scientific community. An example of this is Rupert Sheldrake, PhD. You might have heard of a book called Dogs That Know When Their Owners Are Coming Home. And he's also known for invented the term morphic resonance. And to him, morphic resonance is the way that there is consciousness and connectedness through all of nature, through all of the animal kingdom, through all of the plant and mineral kingdom as well. There is this connection. And he was kind of put down some by the scientific community. So he was never taken, he's still alive actually, I think he's in his 80s, but never taken quite seriously by the scientific community, although he is a scientist in his own right. And there are brave souls who started out in very rational professions, but have opened to their deeper intuition and blossomed into new professions in clairvoyance, mediumship, etc. And one example, you've probably heard of her, is Suzanne Giesemann. Anybody heard of her? She's that you can find her on YouTube. She's very interesting. She was a U.S. naval commander, so she came from a very rational, very strict, very logical background. Her whole training, her whole career was as a naval officer. And you can't get more right wing than that, right brain than that. No, left brain. I'm not good at left and right, so yeah. Anyway. So she is now a medium and a spiritual healer. And you can find her on YouTube, and she's pretty phenomenal. She's an amazing woman, and so to hear her story is quite something. So I highly recommend you looking her up on YouTube. Another example is Pam Gregory, who is a businesswoman, and she'd studied astrology as a younger woman, and she never talked about it much at work, but she'd hear things from her colleagues at work. Why, you don't believe in that stuff, do you? Kind of like, you know. But now she left the business world and is a full-time astrologer and also a spiritual teacher. And she's another person you can find on YouTube. She's got some really good stuff to say. And then there are legions of scientific breakthroughs that came in dreams and other ways. So I think that there are so many examples that I can't even start to go into that. And then there's the mycologist and soil scientist, Dr. Mervyn Sheldrake. He's actually the son of Rupert Sheldrake. And he talks of how during his doctoral studies, he went from the rigor of the lab, he was working mostly in a lab, and to spend some time in the field on an island in the middle of a lake in Panama. And he was there with a bunch of other scientists doing different research, and it was quite a wacky crowd. There was one man who was doing research on bumblebees, and he wanted to track them. So he wanted to put a tracker on a bumblebee. And he found it was kind of hard to make the tracker stick because the bumblebee is furry. So he was trying to devise a way to shave the fur off a bumblebee. And then there was the woman who was studying monkeys and studying how monkeys, they love to eat the fruit that's starting to ferment in the tropical jungle when it's overripe. And they will get kind of drunk. There'll be tipsy monkeys all over the place. So she wanted to collect their urine. Well, it's kind of hard because the monkeys are up in the treetops. So she was trying to find a way to funnel monkey urine. I don't know if she ever succeeded, but so he talks about being in this bunch of wacky scientists in a very messy environment. I think their overseer, apparently he liked whiskey, which he drank neat and no ice. So I can't imagine anything worse in a tropical climate. Anyway, there's this bunch of wacky people doing these strange experiments, and out of this comes science. And he was saying that, you know, with all the research he's done and the papers he's written, he said he might produce a very meticulous and exact paper, but behind that is this messy, wacky craziness, this chaos. Mm-hmm. And out of this chaos comes the science. So I think that's really, really interesting. And of course, he's the son of his father. So his father, who went beyond the bounds as far as the scientific community is concerned. Merlin is kind of following in his father's footsteps, but he's rather more accepted than his father was. So going back to Rupert Sheldrake and morphic resonance, is animal senses. He talked in the book he had about the dogs. He talks about animal senses. And I want to know if anybody here has found something with one of their pets. So anybody have an example of connecting with a sense that their animals have? I'll share one of mine. Sometimes my cats like to go out late in the evening, and at this time of year in particular, it's so fun out there because there are moths and there are all things buzzing around, and there are creatures that come out at night. So when I want them in, it's kind of hard sometimes to get them in. And I will rattle the treat box and I will call their names. But if it's too fun out there, it's kind of hard to get them back in. And what I've discovered that sometimes if I send them a picture, and I send them a picture of their favorite treat, or one of them that really loves to snuggle, and I'll send him this picture of him snuggling and me giving him the pets all around his face. And pretty soon he comes trotting up to the door. So I know that they're connecting in that way, and then I can connect with them in that way. And anybody here have an example of pet connection or pets knowing? And how about our own intuitive experience? Does anybody have an intuitive experience they'd like to share? I know we all have them from time to time. And I'll share one of mine. This is some years ago, and I was still living in the UK, and my dad's business had gone bust, and he decided to go back to sea. He was a marine diesel mechanic. That's what he'd done in the Royal Navy. So he got this job on a millionaire's motor yacht. And before he took off, he wanted us to all go, the whole family, to go and see this yacht. And when we went to the boatyard, it was still within the shed in the boatyard, and it was a great big yacht, and a lot of the superstructure was a lot of glass. And I looked at this, and I had this dread feeling, and I could almost picture water breaking over, sieves breaking over this glass superstructure. And I didn't say anything to my dad because I don't think he would have accepted that too well. And I didn't want to, he was so excited about this new job, I didn't want to put him off. But anyway, they took off across the English Channel and down through the Bay of Biscay, which is off the coast of France, on the edge of the Atlantic. It's a very dangerous area. They got into trouble in Biscay and had to send out a mayday call, and they got towed into La Rochelle by the French Coast Guard. They were all safe, but they were in danger. So when I heard that, I knew that my intuitive sense had been correct. I hadn't acted on it for fear of disturbing my father or of sounding weird or whatever. And then many years later, my son James, who, by this time I had 3 sons, and James was grown up and married, and he had bought this little old red MG, and he was so excited about it. He was going to fix it up. He wanted me to see it, and I got that same feeling. It's like, oh no. So this time I shared it with James, and I shared the feeling I had and told him about the same feeling I'd had about the yacht that my dad was going to be on. And fortunately, he sold that car. So it's like, yes, I acted on that intuition, which I think when we honor, we recognize the intuition is there and we act on it, it reinforces that sense. And these intuitions come in many ways. I mean, it's maybe a nudge, it may be a vision. It's kind of, with my dad's thing, was kind of a vision, because I could visualize the seas breaking over this boat. And it was also a felt sense of dread. It could be a voice, an inner voice we hear. I think we have to be careful with that, because sometimes that inner voice is the ego, and sometimes it's the true intuitive voice. Sometimes it's an animal that has something to say to us. So again, does anybody here would like to share? Bill?
Pre-cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
It always feels to me like it was different pre-cell phone. Like we seem to have a little more intuition. But Mary Kay, my wife, she'd have things to do in town, and I'd have things to do in town. And so there was a particular week when she had gone into town and the car had broken down. And then I just came across her and was able to help her. That happened not once, but twice in 1 week.
Yeah.
I don't know what to attribute it to, but I do believe that our intuitions were better before cell phones.
Yeah, exactly, because you didn't have the cell phone, but you have this deep connection with each other. So, yeah, so that intuition, that connection is there. And Leslie had her hand up.
Yeah, well, when you're driving down the freeway and stuff, and you're going along and you look over and you see this car, and you know that car's going to come right out in front of you and then do this. So you gotta just kind of slow back down and let them go. But,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, there are things like that that happen all the time. But I keep looking for something in the house and I can't find it, and then I'll just stop. My sister asks our mother, who's logged on, right, to help her find it. And I just laugh, and then I started doing it myself, and there it is. I find what I'm looking for. So
Yeah.
it's all kind of intuitive. Like
Yeah. And that connection with loved ones who've passed. I remember years ago when I was setting up a garden, I had a yard that was all just dirt, and it was gardening from scratch. And I felt my paternal grandfather with me, who was an amazing gardener. He was a very meticulous gardener, which I'm not, but I felt him with me, and he'd been long gone, and it was really something to feel his presence there. So I think we feel that presence of loved ones. I think sometimes there's an animal that connects with us, maybe seeing a certain animal that reminds us of something we need to do, or something like that. And sometimes that inner voice. And I wonder if you'll...
I have one, Marilyn.
Mhm.
You were there. We were playing cards, and I said, I'm going to draw 2 sevens. And I pick up the cards, and it was 2 sevens.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Shame on her using intuition to
Yeah.
beat us.
And I have an
I said it again. And I said, I'm going to draw another 7. And
Yeah.
there it was.
And she won, of course. I play cards with Jeanette. So she wins a lot because she's very intuitive. When she's going to steal from somebody else's pile, she knows exactly which one to go. Without looking. I don't think she's got anything up her sleeve. And a friend of ours just shared, so there was something that was troubling her. And she shared, I won't go into details, but she shared the other day how something happened that said, okay, that's not the way to go. And it was like just an occurrence, and that's like, here's my answer. So that there are so many ways that spirit, and it is that connection with spirit. I think the spirit is telling us, you don't want to go this way, go that way. How about the times you followed your intuition, the times you didn't follow your intuition? And I've got a couple of examples of not following intuition. And it was with my own first marriage. And my boyfriend was this sailing buddy. We loved to sail, so our connection was through sailing. And eventually we got together, and I became pregnant. I was still in high school, and I was a good scholar. I'd earned a state scholarship, which is very rare in the UK. And I was supposed to be hoping to go to Oxford. So I had this whole vision of my future, but here I was pregnant. So we were going to get married, and not long before the actual wedding took place, I told my first husband a joke, and he didn't laugh, and I thought, oh dear, I shouldn't marry this man. And he was a really nice man, but we didn't have, apart from the sailing, we didn't have that true connection that is, I think, like the same kind of humor or other kinds of things. So although I went into this marriage and we had 2 more kids who ended up with 3 little boys, but my intuition was telling me that this is not the way to go. So that was an interesting thing. And then there was another thing. Many years after that, I wanted to go and see Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh in Pune, India. And I decided I would take sannyas, which is this ceremony to kind of be officially a disciple of this guru. And here's this notorious guru you've probably heard of.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
And anyway, that morning I was sitting in the garden of the hotel that I was staying in, and this is in India, and this great kite is a kind of carrion bird or prey bird, comes down from the sky and catches a sparrow and eats it right there. And I think, oh dear. And it's kind of like an omen. But I thought, no, I've come here to do this thing, so I'm going to go through and do this thing, take sannyas and whatever. And so I took sannyas and was Rajneesh sannyasin for 4 years. And it was difficult. I never quite felt accepted or fitting in. I learned a huge amount in those years, but it was difficult, and the aftermath was difficult after all this scandal broke around him. And it was a difficult time, and it was a difficult time coming to terms with that, and even especially being able to acknowledge that I was with that group for that amount of time.
Did you go to Antelope?
Yeah, I was there, yeah. And I left, I was there for about a couple of years, and when I saw things going really, as they say in Britain, pear-shaped, I thought there's something really wrong here, and I left, and actually dropped Sanyas after I left the ranch. But it was a difficult time, and a learning time. I think sometimes we make the wrong move, but we learn from it. So all very interesting. So and I think when sometimes from not following our intuition, and then later recognizing that we didn't follow it, we are actually honoring it, as we are saying, oh, I had that intuition, I didn't follow it, and look what I had to go through from not following it. So my contention is that when we honor our intuition, when we give it credence and act on it, then our intuitive sense is given permission to flourish, and we can rely on it more and more. I do suspect that we can't train it. I think it's so elusive. It's not something we can train. I don't think we can get there from the rational mind. I don't think we can get to the intuitive mind from the rational.
I think we're training it unconsciously every day.
I think Bill said that he thinks we're training it unconsciously every day.
I think it's free.
Go ahead, yeah.
I said I think it's free, and that's why we're not training it.
Yeah. It's there. It's just available, and I think we can open ourselves to that intuition through meditation, through yoga, through being in nature. Sometimes extreme sports, people that jump off things, and I would never do that. but I think when people put themselves in very dangerous situations, also it helps to open them up to something greater. So when we open ourselves up to the ephemeral sense that we all possess in many different ways, and by trusting what it has to offer us, we're not only becoming more intuitive, but are more consciously in connection with all that is. And whether you call that God or Great Spirit or whatever, when we're becoming more consciously connected, I think that conscious connection is our spiritual life. When we can acknowledge that, when we can really open to it and just let go into it, then I think that the intuitions come to us more frequently. And that's often in the form of synchronicities, I think. And I've found synchronicities come in many strange forms. I might have been thinking something, just thinking it, and then I see something on YouTube or online somewhere. It's like, I was just thinking that. And it wasn't even that I'd gone on a search, I was thinking that, and here it is. And I think, and everybody's nodding here, is that yes, it happens. We're so connected. We are so connected, guys. We're connected with each other and everything else.
My daughter, she can read my mind sometimes.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
great. Like what you just said, I'll be thinking about something, and she will just say a word out loud, and it'll be literally a word that's in my mind, and she'll even say it completely out of context. It's not related to anything we're doing.
Wow.
And it's just so, and it happens a lot.
Wow. That's so sweet.
Yeah.
Kind of disconcerting too. I know what Mom is thinking.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Wait till she's a teenager. Anyway, so when we're in conscious connection with all that is, we live in harmony with ourselves, our families, and our world. So that's what I like to leave us all with, this idea that when we are honoring our intuitive sense, when we're honoring it, giving it credence, acting upon it, and opening to that divine, recognizing it as a divine gift, then we are truly in connection and we are in harmony. Does Susan have something?
Oh, I just have a thought here. So I can see that, you're talking about intuition, but what about a fear, what about having fears about something that might happen? How is that different than intuition? Because, it's like, that would stop you from doing something because you think something bad might happen if you do it. So I'm having to, I'm skeptical about intuition, and very skeptical about that because,
From my own perspective, I can get in that state of the what if, and I can recognize it as it's a kind of different feeling inside. It's a kind of, I mean, the mind kind of grabs hold of it and gnaws at it and, chews at it and spits it out and wants to chew it on it again. But the intuitive sense I've had is not anything like that. It's like, oh, it's like, don't go there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like this thing in the mind. It's like, don't go there.
That's not more rational.
Yeah, it's not rational in any way, and it's not the mind doing. So I don't know if it is. Oh, Leslie.
One really good example of intuition, I haven't worked, for quite a few years yet, but I worked night shift in the hospital, and one of my jobs was to go around and just to help people out and that. But I would walk down a hall, and all of a sudden I would be drawn to go into a room, and that person would be in trouble.
Yeah.
And it happened numerous times.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's absolutely no reason for me to go in there, and no suspicion that there was a problem anywhere.
Mhm.
That I was called there. And so
Yeah.
when I went in, and unfortunately we were able to fix the problem, but,
Yeah.
sometimes if I ignored that, I was sorry I did.
Yeah.
So, it's just,
I think that's so valid because we tune into other people. That sometimes without even knowing it, we're tuning into other people's vibes. We can tell if they're sad or angry. Sometimes I can even pick up if somebody's feeling resentment in some way. So we pick that up, and it's because we're connected. And when we honor that connection, I think it works more and more for us. Thank you, Leslie. Bill?
I've had this experience as a shop teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So, just for you that may not have been in shop teaching usually involves young men.
Yeah.
And we all know they're very rational and logical. And I would, of course, I have kids all over the place, maybe as many as 30 doing all kinds of things, usually involving fire and dangerous equipment. And you get a feeling, and you go, I haven't checked on them. You go back and check on them, and they're in the middle of lighting a fire or creating a bomb or something. or what is it? Doing something dangerous with another kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like you get to the point. I never thought to call it intuition. I just thought I had a timer in my head. You get to the point where, like, time after time, you go and you catch them in the act.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Did everybody hear what Bill was sharing? I think everybody did. So it's amazing, and you weren't seeing it as intuition at the time, but you were honoring it because you were acting upon it again and again. So yeah, we all have it. It's all there, and it's available to us whenever we need it. So thank you all very, very much.